Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I'm upset.
Really?
I bought some minnows to go fishing, but they gave me earthworms. It's the old bait and switch.
Please clap.
Aw, there's Jeb Bush remembers you.
Yes, that's good. Someone come back. What a difference a week makes. I mean, last week it was 40 degrees. It was nice. Since then, we've gone through a blizzard snowstorm. I don't think, well, we got like 6 inches here in the Twin Cities. North of us, they got as much as 17 inches, if not more. So they kind of missed us. But and then of course the world's going to hell in a handbasket. And in the meantime, my box day showed up, so my previews showed up, and now I have 2 previews, which kind of goes into this episode because this is the second time we're trying to record this here preview show.
Yes, something weird happened with both of our computers last week.
I regret to hear.
Where we were talking and all of a sudden you just sort of vanished into the ether.
Yeah, it was weird.
And then I had to restart Skype because it was Joe. Joe, were you there?
It was Cory because he refused. He likes to hang on to that old Skypeism instead of like investing in something newer.
There is nothing newer.
Yeah.
Because Zoom is just built on Skype. It just costs more.
Yeah.
So I fire up Skype again, call Joe, hit the record button. We do our previews episode, and I get to we get all done. I go, oh, that's weird. I can't find where to turn off the recording. And I look, and it's gone.
I don't think he ever pressed record. Cory's getting a little old there. You know, he's been in his compound for over 365 days.
We are next month. We've got anniversaries. First off, yesterday was the anniversary of us recording the first episode of Crazy Comics and Stories, believe it or not.
Yes.
And in 3 weeks, it will be 2 years since I was told I could work from home because of COVID.
Stupid COVID. You go squish now.
No.
Did you know?
No. There's the one good thing. I get to work from home. Because
and did you want to know?
Now mentioning
what's really
3 ways you could work. You could work in the office, you could do hybrid, or you could work from home. They asked me what I want. I said, I have said since day one, you will need the jaws of life to get me out of my house.
Well, see, and the best part is they can monitor your COVIDism even from your house.
Yeah.
Which I just found out because apparently they are monitoring your poop. Because when you poop, COVID comes out your butt. And they don't even have to come into your house and take your blood or make you breathe. Or all you mask-breathing paranoia folks, they just sit downstream and analyze your shit. That's a true fact, by the way.
I know, and
I didn't. I was kind of. I mean, I almost feel bad for them considering how bad I felt last week. But that was more what I ate, not really.
Now, I don't know, Joe, if you have relatives like this, but I have relatives who go in for every fad they read on the internet. And one of them is homeopathy, where they say you can take your medicine and put a drop of it in water, and it will retain the strength because water has a memory. And when my sister told me that, I said, I really hope that's not true, because if water has a memory, it's going to remember that I do some really horrible, horrible things to it when I'm on the toilet. So you're the guy who took a crap in me, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need to talk, buddy. We are going to make it through previews, come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there will be no high water because the water's all frozen.
And I will have to apologize if I seem rather withdrawn and not my normal jovial self. But we'll get to that when we get to freaking.
You're jovial Bob Stein? I read all of your books when I was a kid.
Keep the energy level up, Cory, because I can't do it. But anyways, Anyways. See, that was about it. I need a nap now.
All right, previews. We go through the monthly previews catalog from Diamond and the Marvel and DC catalogs, which are not in Diamond anymore.
No, we ended up getting ours through the Comic College, because when we got well, like I said, I just got my previews, but the preview show we did, I hadn't had it yet, so I bought mine from Mind's Eye. They didn't have the DC Connect or the Marvel book, which I thought was very curious, because even as you listen to this, the deadline for whatever we're recommending is passed. You should still be able to contact your friendly neighborhood comic store and say, hey, those crazy guys recommended this. Can I still get it? Because, I don't know about final order cutoff dates.
But we were knuckleheads.
It's just, shenanigans ensue. They can use whatever colorative adjective they want, or colorful. Anyways, I thought it interesting because one shop didn't have them, another shop did, a third shop didn't. We didn't get ours, or at least you didn't get yours when you got your previews. I got mine, although I got the previews after the orders were due. Good going, Discount Comic Book Service. So, be that as it may, plus we'll probably have another preview show next week. So, you guys are so lucky. But is there anything on the cover that got you excited, Corey? Because I know you're a cover reader.
One thing I noticed was that on the spine, they didn't advertise anything because they sell advertising on the spine. This time it's Diamond celebrates 40 years. Now, this is issue 401. And issue 400, I remember we looked through and nothing special about it. So this is a 40-year anniversary and nothing special about it either. But I do want to point out one of the things that I buy for Free Comic Book Day, and they list all the Free Comic Book Day comics.
Free.
But they also list the Free Comic Book Day shirt, which is a pretty cheap shirt, really. And it's got art by Tyler Kirkham. I usually pick that up. And they also, you can get the black generic Free Comic Book Day shirt. You can get beanie. I'm not a beanie wearer, but I am looking at getting the adjustable hat because as I age, my beautiful hair has decided to leave me, and the bald spot keeps getting larger, which means
hair's overrated.
Which means I need to worry about a sunburn on that head. So
is that a crack? Because I'm going to Hawaii in 2 weeks.
No, but I think last year I said
I'm going to Hawaii in 2 weeks.
I remember I said, I'm going to give living proof that my vanity is dead. I'm going to go outside, sit on my deck and read comics, and I have to put sunblock on the bald spot on my head, or else I'm going to be in immense pain. You can't be vain if you actually tell people about your faults, right? What we do for previews, we go through, we don't talk about every comic we buy. We talk about first issues, special things, trade paperbacks, hardcovers, and we point out things that we have bought in the past that are being resolicited that we think you would be interested in. And we start, as always, with Image. Joe, what are you buying from Image?
Let's see. You know what sucks is I crossed off all the page numbers, so I can't. Okay, there it is, page 52.
And now Image, you know why I just dog-ear the page.
I don't, because what I do is I write down not only what I want to talk about in my order, but then I have a clipboard full of other things that I want to point out. So, well, I'll just point out, like on page 46, not something I bought or buying, but Lego Ninjago Garmandon #1. The reason why it's significant, it is I don't know if it's the first Lego comic book series.
No.
But it's all new.
And it's from Image.
So the Lego guys who would probably be real interested in this will probably find out about it after it's published. So that's the type of thing you want to get on. What I did buy is on page 52, Image #1 of 12, which is a 30th anniversary celebration of Image, featuring it features ongoing serials, standalone short stories, and all sorts of stuff. Jeff Johns is there. I believe this is his first writing for Image. I don't know.
No, he's got a series from Image, remember?
No, I don't. But
What's it
I
called?
don't even remember why
can't
we're
remember
doing
the
this.
name of it off the top of my head, but they just came out with the trade paperback and the first issue.
There's an original ongoing comic strip by Scotty Young. It's all there on page 52. 12-issue series, probably a book. And the cool thing about it is part of the no risk title. So that means if your comic store is astute, they can order quite a few of these, and you should be able to go in and not worry about it selling out. I, however, would go in and tell them, hey, put this on my list if it's something you are interested in, because that's the type of guys we are.
The series that he has done is called Geiger.
Oh,
first trade paperback is out, and the first 80-page giant is out.
I'll talk about that because I'm sorting through my comics, and I just ran across a few issues of that. So I must have ordered it. I have no idea if I have it all, but that's a different subject.
I am picking up that one too. Also, Image is highlighting they are dropping new Image Firsts. Image First is a program they have where they have the first issue of a series for $1. They are adding to that Aerosmith and Astro City, two Kurt Busiek books, which have moved over to Image. Department of Truth #1, Radiant Black #1, Little Bird #1, Homesick Pilots #1, Firepower #1, Middle West #1, Scumbag #1, Death or Glory #1, and Noctura #1. And then on page 66 and 67, they list all the other #1s. Image First. They're #1s that are $1 each. So if you are looking at a series, let's say you watched Invincible on Amazon, and you go, well, I want to see if that comic's any good. You can get the first issue for $1 to see if you like the art and like the storytelling style. All the way back to Savage Dragon #1 for $1.
Now, what I thought was weird is as I was going and ordering these, I had a whole list of the new ones. I didn't see it on my order form. When I was sitting there thinking, oh, I'll get these #1s because, even at $1 a piece, we buy them at 60 cents, 65 cents. I thought I'd give a few of these a try, but I did not see anywhere to order them.
It may just be on the retailer form because they may have to buy them in bundles.
Yeah, it could be. But I found
it's like the Free Comic Book Day stuff. When your shop orders stuff for Free Comic Book Day, they don't say, well, I want 22 of these and 51 of that.
Yeah,
here's a 25.
They list the
25
old
pack.
ones. Yeah, that's what's annoying. They list the old ones without the new ones. So whatever. On page, hang on a second. Got to find my page numbers. On page 53, which I thought was something interesting. The Secret History of the War on Weed. The year is 1985. The First Lady decides to crush Northern California's cannabis farmers and deploys the biggest tool of the armed forces, Scott McTerran. It's a collectible first of many hilarious appearances. If it weeds, we can kill it. Scott puts his boots on the ground in Humboldt and does what he does best. But what happens when he gets high for the first time? It's a one-shot with it all. Laugh, tears, heart, action, plus an activity page. And a portion of the proceeds from this comic will be donated to organizations dedicated to helping casualties of America's immoral drug war. And it's a great way to celebrate, what are they calling it? Marijuana Man? Because it'll come out on 4/20. Get it?
Marijuana Man is a book that Image published a while back as well.
So come get some.
When it gets to the hardcovers and trade paperbacks, back on page 62, Volume 3 of Department of Truth is out.
Which I did order. And
one
I
of my
finally
favorite
got
comics.
In between last week and this week, I got my Volume 1, which is good because that was the one that got stolen out of my car. And I have Volume 2 sitting waiting to be read, but I didn't want to read. I could have read Volume 1 because I think I have the first 6 issues somewhere, but I don't know where. I think this was one of those where I decided, you know what, I'm going to bail and just read it as a comic book.
And then when you find it, you can sell them.
Yeah, that's it for me for Image. Anything else for you?
Nothing new, really.
All right.
Next is Dark Horse Entertainment.
Dark Horse. Let's see.
Which has recently been bought by a company that's buying up a lot of entertainment companies.
Oh, Disney. Good for them.
No, not them.
Not Disney. All right. The only thing I'm getting on page 90, The Amazing Screw-On Head and Other Curious Objects, hardcover anniversary edition by Mike Magnolia. Because this is a hardcover that has all The Amazing Screw-On Head and Other Curious Objects, as well as an additional 40 pages of new material. Normally, I find that highly annoying. Here, buy this. But that's okay. I'm going to get the hardcover, so it'll be fun to reread. Then I can sell all the other ones. That's it for me for Dark Horse. Pretty light. How about you? You know, this whole month was light. I mean, last month was killer. It had, 5,000 omnibuses? This month, meh.
Next month's going to be brutal.
I know. But we got to get through this month.
One of my favorite comics in the history of comics is Matt Wagner's Grendel, because there's going to be a Netflix series. They just finished filming the first season, as we saw if you follow Matt Wagner on the Facebooks. They are reprinting the omnibuses. The first omnibus has all of the Hunter Rose stories. Now, they were not published in chronological order, because the series basically, there were 3 issues that were black and white, and then it was a backup in Mage where the character died, and there have since been stories that come before that. So these put them all in chronological order. It's a Dark Horse omnibus, so it's a big, thick trade paperback for $30, 600 pages, well worth it. Some of the best comics you will ever read. I even have a tattoo of it right here,
which really works on a podcast.
Yeah,
I tell you,
on my right bicep.
We I think are getting to the point where we're actually doing this pretty well, except for occasional ums and burps, and like when I have to take a quick drink of water because my mouth is dry,
or when I have to cut out things that are libelous.
Hey, that's just because I haven't had a 10-hour rant 10-minute rant in several episodes. But I'm just saying we should maybe try it. Maybe people would like to see us doing this live. We could actually hold up pictures. Hey, look what I got. Something to think about whenever Cory drops one of his 5 zillion jobs and I retire.
I have a face for radio. On the next page 93.
For radio. 93.
Dark Horse is picking up all of the stuff that Brian Michael Bendis self-published or published through Image or whatever. It's gone to Image and then to Marvel. Actually, this one started at Caliber, went to Image, went to Marvel, went to DC. Now it's at Dark Horse. Torso, which he wrote and drew with Mark and Draco. This is a graphic novel about the Torso Killer, which was the killer in Cleveland that was the last case of Elliot Ness. Yes, after Elliot Ness took down Al Capone, he became a federal cop, and he tried to catch the Torso Killer in Cleveland. It's a really good book. I did not notice it last time when we did this. And then the last thing I want to point out, because I always point out the EC books, and last time I think I did a 5-minute spiel on the history of EC. After the comics died,
really sucks because those are kind of the fun things, anything that I flip a quarter and then Cory goes off for a while.
So after the comics died, Mad was still selling, so William Gaines said, why don't I do this stuff as magazines? However, he didn't use the Mad format. He didn't use the comic format. He used a format he called pictofiction, which where he took stories as prose stories and would have a paragraph or two and a drawing above it. And that would be the pictofiction. And the problem was, first off, the distribution was terrible. And second, the prose writing was awful. The books were horror. I forget. I can't think of them off the top of my head. We'll actually see them later. But Confessions Illustrated is getting a archive. It's awful. It's almost like romance stories, things like I sold my baby, I was man crazy. Those love confession magazines, they were selling well, so he decided to try one. They're terrible. If you are interested in the EC Pictofiction, don't buy them there, because you can go, and they still have it in previews, where you can order the Pictofiction box set, which is all 4 of them, larger, with all of the stuff that was prepared for the magazines that weren't printed, for $150. And it's a much, much better set than these. These are nice, but those Pictofiction boxes, the box sets that Russ Cochran did, are amazing. And they're still available from Diamond. So you can pay $50 for one of them or $150 for all 4. And those box sets go up in value because I have all of them, and every time I see them at Dreamhaven listed at scary prices, I go, I am so glad I bought those back when I could get them at their regular price.
From me?
Well, I only got the last 2 from you. I got the pre-trend box set and the Pictofiction box set. The others were all out when I worked at Schindler's. So like I would save up from my paycheck, and every 2-3 paychecks, it's like, okay, I can afford Weird Science now. I can afford Tales from the Crypt now. Because when I first read EC Comics and I got my first Overstreet price guide, they had an ad that they were going to be reprinting all of EC in these beautiful box sets. And my 14-year-old self says, I will have that.
I will.
And in 2005, when Russ Cochran printed the last one, the Pictofiction, I could go back and look at my 14-year-old self and go, we got them all. Oh, and I've seen real boobies.
You know what my 14-year-old self was saying? Ma, if I clean my room, will you give me $10 so I can buy comic books? Never mind that I messed up the room to get the $10 to begin with.
Well, there is that.
Yeah.
And now we move on to IDW.
All right. IDW has, well, I didn't buy either one. This is weird. This is like true. Usually when I do this, I'm thinking about it, but then I had to budget it. But I will probably buy this one as a book. The Rocketeer, The Great Race, #1. This is on page 122, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the very first appearance of the Rocketeer. And ace stunt pilot Cliff Secord is back. Returned from his New York adventure to a West Coast steeped in paranoia and the looming war in Europe. And there's even a bonus feature, which will contain an oral history featuring Dave Stevens' friends, family, and fellow artists, all culled together by Kelvin. Oh, didn't I bitch about this last time? I think it's Mao, M-A-O. He's a longtime friend of Stevens and the director of the forthcoming documentary on the beloved artist. I'm complaining about sometimes the print's small and I'm getting old. I need my readers. That's okay. I got my magnifying glass back here.
And you know how we're all, I wish Disney'd do another Rocketeer movie.
Yep.
Well, they did a cartoon series, believe it or not.
Ooh.
It's on Disney Plus. It lasted 1 season. 7-year-old Kit Secord learns she is secretly next in line to become the Rocketeer. Her grandfather created a rocket pack armed with her cool new gear and a secret identity.
Sitting on my back, oh so much. I don't need Elton John mad at me. Strike that.
Kit takes to the skies to protect her town of Hughesville and its residents from danger. I doubt they have the pinup pictures of Betty Page in it.
Aww.
Assisting her are her best friend Tesh, her bulldog sidekick Butch, and her airplane mechanic grandfather Ambrose Secord. No, the son of the original Rocketeer.
It doesn't sound like it.
Lasted 1 season.
Oh well.
But it's there.
On the next page, 124, another 40th anniversary, G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, 40th anniversary special. Again, pointed this out because Larry Hama wrote a lot of it, and he's the one still, if you look across, keeping that G.I. Joe, Real American Hero rolling. There's no other G.I. Joes being published right now except that Larry's doing, so that should tell you something. Other than, is this one of those that they lose the license for soon?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end of the
that's
year, G.I. Joe and Transformers will no longer be at IDW. The rumor is, and it's not been confirmed, they're moving over to Image under Robert Kirkman's Skybound.
Did you know he's a partner of Image?
Yes.
I did not. I thought that was interesting. Anyways,
Yeah,
anything
they
else?
made him a partner once his TV show made a couple bajillion dollars.
Yeah. You're keeping us alive. You may be a partner now.
You want to buy in, buddy?
That's it for me for IDW.
On to Dynamite, where they are tempting me.
They are. Go ahead with the first thing. Both Cory and I caught our attention there on page 138.
Page 138, 139. Project Superheroes Fractured States. Project Superheroes is a book that Alex Ross put together for Dynamite, where they basically gathered up a whole bunch of public domain heroes like the Black Terror. I can't even go into all of them. Mostly it's like the Black Terror and other quality characters that DC does not own. As the nation is torn apart, someone is murdering all of the patriotic heroes. A mysterious amnesiac awakens in a sealed underground base, naked and abandoned. This John Doe emerges in the year 2052, where the entire Project Superpowers universe has been turned on its head. The United States is no more, ravaged by environmental disasters and fragmented into warring legions. The Black Terror is now many. The revolutionaries are trying to save the Republic, but who is John Doe? Why can't he remember anything? And does his presence in this brave new world bring it salvation or its doom? Written by Ron Mars, whose writing I like. Co-written by Andy Lanning, who you may know as one of the co-creators of the Annihilation story stuff that happened at Marvel in the aughts. My problem with Project Superpowers is the same as my problem with a lot of these Dynamite series that aren't about women with large chests. It starts and then with a whole bunch of fanfare and bajillions of special covers, etc., and then it peters out really quickly. When Joe and I were running around last time, we stopped at the College of Comic Book Knowledge, and I picked up the Kirby Genesis series, which was also by Dynamite. I remember I read the first couple issues, and then the soliciting got weird, and it's like, I've lost the thread. I'll just wait till it's available in books. And then I missed when it was available in books, but the college had all of the series in packs, including one which was Captain Victory. And it said, it only has issues 1 through 6. And I went to Wikipedia and other pages, and it lasted till issue 8. So I went over to the back issue bin, and I looked, and I couldn't find issues 7 and 8. I went on to eBay, and I couldn't find issues 7 and 8. And I went over here. And finally, I read where issues 7 and 8 were solicited but never came out. So I opened it up, and I went back to issue 6, and it does say the end, with a little editorial about how, the story now has ended, but it will continue in the future. It hasn't. So they solicited 7 and 8 and then went, it's not selling well enough. Kill it now. Project Superpowers, I've got the 3 omnibus trade paperbacks they've put out. So that's why I'm tempted by this, but I might just wait till it's all collected in a book so that it sits on the shelf with the others.
Is this an ongoing series, or does it say?
It says it's an ongoing series.
Okay, so yeah, books might be a good way to do it. Let's see. Some things.
For me, the rest of Dynamite is their regular stuff, except everything gets restarted with new number 1s every.
Yeah, and I was going to point some of those out for the fans. If you're a John Carter, Warlord of Mars fan, new number 1 on page 144. Another Immortal Red Sonja book. Number 1, this by Dan Abnett and Alessandro Ercole, with various covers and things like that. Plus on page 150, you got a write-up So if you're into Red Sonja, could be a jumping on point. One thing I wanted to point out, if you got kids who are into the Paw Patrol, from Curiosity Books on page 156, Paw Patrol Possum Puppets, make your own Paw Patrol puppets. And I have no idea what Paw Patrol is. It must be something on Nickelodeon or something like that. But if your kids like it, or you have someone who does, this is an interesting thing to buy. For you boys fans, if you've never ever read The Boys, and what's wrong with you? Here's your chance to do the omnibus dance. Volume 1 hardcover, collecting boys 1 through 30. I believe there will be 3 of these. It collects 4 of the trades. I have them all in trades. If you've never ever read it, starting on page 146, there's 2 50 centers you can buy to give yourself a chance to see if you like it. One of them, The Boys Herogasm, and the other one, The Boys number 7. And I will defer to Cory because I know the Strode knows. Cory, why number 7 and not number 1?
Of which book again?
The Boys.
Because the first 6 issues were published by Wildstorm at DC, and DC kind of went, this is going a little too far. We're going to have to cancel it. And Dynamite said, we'll pick it up. Can we do whatever we want? Sure. Okay. So Warren Ellis and Derek Robertson came over, and the book got even more violent.
On the next couple of pages, there's some more 50 centers. There's Vampirella Dracula, Unholy number 1. Across from that, Army of Darkness versus Reanimator number 1. And if you like those coins that they done did, a new one, an Elvira JFK $50 collectible coin, is up there on page 169, as well as a reoffer of their previous, they're calling it the blue coin. A couple other fun things. There's Elvira metal crypt cards, which were pretty cool. The Sonja pint glasses, which had art from the Marvel comics on them. That would be Frank Thorne, I believe. And then across from it, the Red Sonja tarot deck. So that's pretty much it for me that I wanted to point out at Dynamite.
Boom! By the way, I want to announce Boom put out a press release today that they have hired more staff. They have increased their staff by 1/3 because their sales year to year from 2020 to 2021, their sales are up 200%. But comics are dying.
It's all Power Rangers. Well, and the Godzilla Power Rangers. It's got to be that too. Or it could be on page 190 if you're a Buffy the Vampire fan, the Vampire Slayer number 1. New Slayer, new creative team, new era. After years of fighting against the forces of evil, Buffy Summer finds herself succumbing to the burden of bearing the Slayer mantle. To help his Slayer, Giles is willing to take a risk and use chaos magic, with Willow's help, to attempt a spell to remove the trauma from Buffy's psyche. The effect backfires, though, and leaves Buffy unable to remember her past or purpose. Meanwhile, Sunnydale's under attack, and a new Slayer rises to protect it, while Buffy's friends race the clock to restore her true self. So, and this is an ongoer, so if you're a Buffy fan, jump on.
And I wonder if, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I wonder if them repurposing and repurposing and repurposing and repurposing drives off the Buffy fans, because the first thing they did, they said, okay, we're restarting and ignoring the Dark Horse stuff. Okay, I can understand that. And we're going to be telling new stories of Buffy when she's in high school. Okay, so this is a retcon. And now they're retconning the retcon.
I don't know if they're retconning it. It just sounds like a natural progression. Let's put Buffy on the shelf, but we have to get her back. Meanwhile, as you know, if there's not a Slayer, a new one pops up, and then you're going to have the fun of 2 Slayers.
But it's outside the continuity of the show, because in the show, the way it ended was what Buffy did, it awoken
It's this or
thousands
nothing.
of Slayers.
It's this or nothing.
Yeah, I agree. But
So
I wonder if a lot of fans will go, no,
who knows? I mean, Marvel and DC do that all the time. You know, well, we're stopping this Spider-Man and starting with a new #1. So,
but they don't say, oh, and by the way, the new Spider-Man is going to be Bob Haney, and he lives in Podunk, New York. You know, it's a continuation of the story. DC, however, does that, and I think that's one of the reasons why only Batman remains as a big seller, because they don't hit the restart button with Batman.
so
They've
if
hit the
you're a
restart.
Buffy fan out there,
Let us know.
Drop us a line. Let us know what you think of this, because you know, I'm not a fan of just cold, you know, reboots like that. Not without, you know, you can make a throwaway line to it. You know, like in the Kelvin Star Trek, the regular Star Trek still exists. Matter of fact, the event that created the Kelvin line is still around. Also still around, if you go back to page 188, I elected to wait for the trade, but Alice Ever After #1. Return to Wonderland in this twisted sequel. Alice first visited Wonderland as a child, now an adult. It's her only escape from a cold, strange reality she finds herself living in. But in order to return to her fantasy world, she'll need something stronger than mushrooms to change her size, and she is forced to resort to crime to feed her growing addiction. Will she choose to escape from her uncaring family and childhood trauma into Wonderland, or will she find the courage to face her demons out in the real world? So I decided to do book on this. The art looks good. I've heard good things about it, but it was just one of those things where I think I'll probably enjoy it better as a book. And that's it for me. I don't know if there's anything else boom-wise for you, Mr. C.
No more boom.
No more boom.
And now we go outside the catalog.
Yay! I can put this catalog here and pull this one over here and pull this list down, and I'm ready for
DC Comics.
Hooray! Let's see. Let's just jump right to page 11. It's great because they actually have pages on these, which makes it a lot easier and more fun to play along. Flashpoint Beyond. A return to the world of Flashpoint. The world of Flashpoint returns after sacrificing everything to help the Flash put the universe back together and save Bruce Wayne's life. Thomas Wayne wakes up in a world he thought was no more. Forced to don the cowl once again, Batman prowls the streets of Gotham, searching for answers to how this world still exists. But what he starts to uncover will send him hurtling around the globe. The hunt for Clockwork Killer starts here. Jeff Johns is back to the alternative world he created. What world is that? Why, look on page 10. There you go. You've got not only Flashpoint paperback, which started this whole New 52. I'm trying to be nice. Or you can go down below and get the whole blaming thing in a 10th anniversary omnibus, which is, if I didn't have them all, this would be the way I would do it. Well, I don't know if I do have them all, because it's Flash 8 through 12, and then 56 tie-in issues, as well as the 5-issue Flash Mini Point series. So I don't recall if I had all 56 tie-in issues. Then again, I wasn't that thrilled with New 52 anyways. But Flashpoint Beyond, I will definitely jump on, and maybe it'll be the new DC.
It's not going to be the new DC, because we know it's going to be the new. No, it's a new story by Jeff Johns. DC.
Oh, well, that's good enough for me.
That's why I'm picking it up, because there've been a lot of sequels to these big events, and most of them have not been very good. I'm looking at you, Civil War 2. Big event that's going to change everything at DC. We'll be finding out about soon, and it's called Dark Crisis.
Dun, dun, dun.
But this, Jeff Johns writes good superhero comics. Why DC didn't follow through on the Rebirth thing he did, I will never understand. Why they made Doomsday Clock and the Three Jokers out of continuity, I will never understand. Jeff Johns is one of those guys, like Kurt Busiek, who can look at a continuity mess and go, I could tell a story that fixes that. Because every so often I go back and I read Avengers Forever, which fixes so much continuity crap at Marvel that you go, oh, cool. And Jeff Johns did that a number of times at DC, where it's okay, I'm going to do this big story. It's going to fix A, B, C, D, and E. And it's a shame that they used Flashpoint, and they didn't warn us ahead of time, by the way, that Flashpoint was going to change everything. Did you remember that? The New 52 kind of came out of nowhere. Flashpoint was one of the reasons we didn't pay a lot of attention to it is, this is just a big Flash story like he does his big Green Lantern stories. And then when they solicited issue 5, they were like, and by the way, this month, everything's canceled. What? It wasn't a ton of hype for it, which is why I think it caught everybody by surprise. This time, this is more, we're going to go back to the well. We're going to let Jeff Johns play in his world again. And that's why I'm picking it up. But I'm not picking it up as regular issues, even though it looks like it's either weekly or bi-weekly. And there aren't 100 bajillion crossovers.
Or variants.
Yeah. So, Joe, what's next?
On page 15, point out Flash, fastest man alive. This ties into the upcoming movie. This is a prelude to the hotly anticipated blockbuster. And I found out through spoiler sites, I didn't mean to go there, but I did, that the question I had is, they say Batman's going to be in it. Well, which Batman is it? Well, could be Ben Affleck, could be Michael Keaton. We won't know till the movie. I don't know if we'll see this in the book. Actually, what I should say is I was reading the spoiler articles after I watched Peacemaker, the last episode. And believe me, it was tough because, people are like, I can't believe blah, blah, blah up here. And you're like, Jesus, do you have to talk that way? Can't you just say, man, here's a surprise, and then don't talk about it or put a spoiler warning on it? So after I watched it, I went in, and then I remember, was it last week? I was all surprised because I heard Patrick Stewart's voice in the Doctor Strange movie trailer coming up. And Cory, you're like, yeah, we've known about that for months. I'm like, yep. I didn't know Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are both going to be in the Flash movie coming up.
Yes.
So for me, that was like but it also answers a question from the last episode of Peacemaker, which I suppose I could talk about because it'll be 2 weeks out. Let's just say I liked it. There, an early geeking for you.
There.
So if you're into that, or you're a CW fan and you want to, on the next couple of pages, they have Earth Prime number 1 and 2, which tie into the CW universe. What caught my attention on this is that they got photo variant covers, and they don't show the photo variant covers, so I didn't buy them. But there's some greater DC Universe things tied together. If you're a CW show fan, you want to look for Earth Prime. If you're going to see the Flash movie, and I think I probably will now, Flash, the fastest man alive, number 1, you want to pick up as a one-shot prequel. So those are actually pretty cool ideas.
On page 22, we get the final issue of the current incarnation of the Justice League, where they all die.
But what? Spoilers! I was just talking about them.
But it says right on the cover, Death of the Justice League.
Spoilers. Oh, I know. We talked about it because I was just laughing. Was it a couple podcasts ago? I was saying, I'm thinking of dropping JLA at 25. Well, that's good, because, or 75. Because that's good. That's when they all die. Oh, okay.
And the thing is, when it was announced, people were upset. Even comic creators are like, I can't believe they're doing this. It's like, dude. Okay, first off, it's 30th anniversary of the death of Superman. Okay? Second, they said this is the prelude to Dark Crisis. So you know it's going to get overturned. You know this is a story thing. Just ride with it. Okay? No, they're not going to kill Batman and keep him dead. I guarantee that. There will always be a Batman book as long as DC is publishing comics. And pretty much a Superman book as long as DC is publishing comics. Everybody else can get canceled for a while, but they always come back. Especially Hawkman, who comes back over and over and over and over and over, and they still can't make any goddamn sense out of it. But yeah, this I'm interested because it's Joshua Williamson, who's kind of become DC's continuity guy, and it's going to be kind of the first shot in the Dark Crisis story. So you got Dan Jurgens working on it, he's just doing a cover. I'm sorry, he's just doing a cover.
That's okay. That's one I'll go for.
But, it's a final issue. I'm interested. I want to see where they're going to go with Dark Crisis, because they've kind of recently dropped the bombshell that behind every crisis has been a malignant force.
Ooh, it'll probably be Dr. Manhattan, since they kind of botched Doomsday Clock.
It's something even more powerful than him.
Oh. Your mom's not writing comics, is she?
No.
Okay, but she's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and, she can wipe out entire continuities by throwing them away while you're at school.
There is that.
What's next, Joe?
On page 26, the next step in the Sandman universe. Sandman universe, Nightmare Country #1. A new character appears. This is written by James Tynion IV. And I'm not going to slaughter the poor people who are doing the art, but it looks to be good. Sometimes nightmares walk the earth. Every night when you sleep, the Lord of Dreams chooses the path you'll follow into a Sylvan asylum or down the hallways of your darkest fears. And sometimes, if its dreams will, those nightmares escape those halls, go out into the world. It's not a choice he makes lightly. Today, the Corinthian walks the earth again. The most feared of all Dream's nightmares, his ravenous mouths have made him legendary among serial killers. Letting the Corinthian out among mortals is the most dangerous thing Dream could possibly do. But he has no choice, because there's another nightmare walking the earth, one that must be hunted. And this monster is one that Dream, Lord of all nightmares, did not make. So definitely, this is an ongoing series. I will probably wait and do what I do with most of the Sandman stuff. Turn the next page. Sandman, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. I have everything in Sandman in hardcovers. Here's your chance on page 29 to get soft covers. Unless you got a couple $100 or so, or your copy was defaced by some guy named Neil Gaiman, here's your chance to get a Sandman #1 facsimile edition. And when you do buy this and you're reading it, think of dumb old Kray, who read this and went, put it on the pile and did not pick up another Sandman until issue 20, and it was already hot. And then I was able to go back and pick them all up. And then at a Dreamhaven shop, I had Neil sign them all. And I think I sold everything except 1, 8, and maybe a few that he wrote to Joe. So a lot of Sandman fun coming out, if you've never read it, do yourself a favor and get the facsimile if you want, but just buy the book 1. Get with it. We need to talk intelligently about this. We need to get you up to speed.
And for me, that was it for regular comics.
And that's it for me pretty much permanently, because other than I think, Cory, you had a few that you recommended that I think I ended up buying too.
Well, back in their collected section.
Wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope, I didn't buy any of them. There were only 6 to choose from, not counting the 4 from Sandman.
There's 100 Bullets Omnibus. 100 Bullets was a series put out by Vertigo. The premise of the series was that a mysterious man would give you a briefcase, an untraceable gun, and 100 rounds of ammunition. And it told stories of people who'd been handed that that briefcase up until issue 100. Then they did another miniseries afterward. This volume collects the rest of that. It's by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. This was where you first kind of heard about Brian Azzarello, who's now kind of bounced around from DC to indie books back to DC. The other book that I want to point out that I'm shocked Joe did not buy, Batman Reptilian.
And the reason why? I think I bought it as a comic series.
Oh.
Because and again, we'll talk more when we get to geeking, but I discovered I have at least issue 1.
So what strikes fear into the hearts of those who terrorize Gotham? It used to be Batman, but something far more frightening stalks the shadows. It's after Gotham's villains, leaving a trail of carnage through the underworld. Now with Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, and many others left bloodied and broken in its wake, Batman opens the case on this mysterious reptilian monster and finds himself vexed by one very important question. What on earth is it? It's written by Garth Ennis and drawn by Liam Sharp. That is why I am buying it. Garth Ennis is one of the greatest writers in comics. His stuff is brutal, mean, and so well done. I'm also getting Justice League, the new 52 Omnibus, which was mostly written by Jeff Johns. I have volume 1. I'm getting volume 2. Now, I want to point out Doom Patrol by Rachel Pollack. I'm a huge fan of Doom Patrol when it was by Grant Morrison. And for the last year or so of Grant Morrison's run, there would be a letter in the letters page from Rachel Pollack saying, do I get to write the Doom Patrol now? Can I please write the Doom Patrol now? She was an author who'd done some books on tarot cards, done some fiction, and when Grant Morrison left, she took over Doom Patrol. It was weird, but I didn't like it. I'm not picking up this omnibus. There are some people who do like it. I wonder if I just liked the Doom Patrol when it was either a plain old superhero series or when Grant Morrison did it, because I didn't like her run on it. I haven't liked any other runs of Doom Patrol, so it could just be that I'm a Grant Morrison fanboy. But it's there, and it's in an omnibus. And that is it for DC. And now, where my money goes, Marvel Comics!
Marvel!
I'm buying reprints here, baby.
There are days where I'm like, I look at everything, and you'll hear me talk when we get to I buy a lot of independents and stuff. Usually I have to wait to get them together, because a lot of them I buy as miniseries. But Marvel, why can't I quit you? Let's see. I gotta get my Marvel on. Oh, what the hell? Let's just start on page 1, because I bought all 3 of these because I don't have them in any original form. Facsimile editions of Amazing Spider-Man #1, Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1, and Spectacular Spider-Man #1. I do this because the only #1 Spider-Man I ever had was a coverless one that Pat and I bought together in our infamous X collection. The guy had 2 coverless Spider-Man 1. And we looked them over and we thought about it. We ended up selling them. The annual #1 is the Sinister Six, which is mind-blowing. The only one that's equal to that is the Fantastic Four annual, The Wedding. And I don't have my original copy of Spectacular Spider-Man #1 anymore. But Cory, in the old podcast, you had an interesting reason why Spectacular Spider-Man came around, one that I don't think I ever heard about.
And I was told this directly by Gary Conway.
Ooh.
Now, Gary Conway was at Marvel in the early 70s, and when Roy Thomas took over as editor-in-chief, he was fine with that because Roy had been there longer. But then, after Roy stepped down, Len Wein was made editor-in-chief, and Gary Conway was not happy about that because he thought he should be next in line. So he went over to DC. Well, Len stepped down after a while, and Marv Wolfman stepped down after an even shorter time, and Gary Conway was able to come back. And as part of his contract with Marvel, he got 8 books a month to write. Think about that. Now that was the Marvel method where you would give a plot and then the artist would draw it, bring it back, and you'd script it. but he was editor-in-chief and writing 8 books, which is why all of a sudden in 76, Steve Englehart got booted off the Avengers and he was writing it. Steve Gerber got booted off the Defenders and he was writing it. We had Ms. Marvel, and we had this book and this book and this book. And one of the books that he had in his contract to write was Spider-Man. However, the writer on Spider-Man at the time was Len Wein, who was a former editor-in-chief. And if you were a former editor-in-chief at Marvel, one of your contracts was that you could not be removed from a book unless the sales were dropping. Which is why when you go back, you'll see Len Wein, writer-editor. That meant that that was one of the books in his contract that he had, okay, if I'm not going to be editor-in-chief, I want this, this, and this. So, to fulfill the contract, Marvel started Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man for Gary Conway. And I've told a number of stories about why Gary Conway quit after 2 months and went back to DC. And that's why Spectacular Spider-Man has stories by Gary Conway, contractually obligated to get a Spider-Man book, and the 3rd issues by Archie Goodwin. Because Gary Conway was like, Marvel's out of control. I can't take it. I quit.
See, I didn't pick up, I think the first Spectacular Spider-Man I bought, because remember, I didn't start until 78, had to be in the teens, because I think it was right before Carry On.
Okay.
Or it might have been when Frank Miller did his Spider-Man Daredevil. I know I was able to go back issue and get like the wrap-up of Champions, which made me, and again, I was like, oh, Angel, Iceman, Champions. I know Hercules. Who the hell is this? Went to go find the Champions series. But again, I was able in those days to get all the issues, and then of course, whatever. I don't have. I sell everything. I mean, I'm an eBay fool. What can I say? What can I say there, Alfie?
Now, the facsimile editions don't just reprint the comic, they reprint everything, including all the ads, letters, pages, bullpen bulletins, all of it.
Which is why it's fun. The Star Wars one was a lot of fun, especially because the write-up, because the comic came out 2 months before the movie. So they're saying, this is a movie coming up, we'll hope you'll like it. And they were really begging for, please like it. Unless you think that's the only Spider-Man fun this month.
I was going to say, now, Joe, why are they
just
reprinting those books?
Because they're starting a new Amazing Spider-Man #1. And the whole question is, what did Spider-Man do? Because he's on the outs with the Fantastic Four. He's on the out with the Avengers. He's on the outs with Aunt May. Nobody wants to see Spider-Man except for Dr. Octopus. Ox on Spider-Man's tail, and the Master Planner has something terrible planned for when he gets his tentacles on Spidey. Boy, that sounds creepy. What does Tombstone have planned? And why, if you go to the next page, there, Mary Jane is not happy with Peter. And again, there's tons of variant covers. I'm trying to figure out which one I went with. I think I went with the Pat Gleason webhead variant cover. And it was a choice between that and the Peach Momoku, the Mark Begley, or even some of the Hidden Gems ones were expensive, but that's the one that I went for. And as far as what did Peter do, tell him, Cory.
We're not going to find out.
Yeah.
Until Free Comic Book Day, because that's where they will reveal what he did. So that'll be after like 2 or 3 issues of the rebooted Amazing Spider-Man comes out. Main reason they are rebooting it, which is, it's weird to me because they're just issues away from 900?
Which means they'll probably go back to numbering at 900.
Well, they'll go 900, but also remember that 800 was kind of the last issue, and then they started with the new #1. So issue 100 of the current run would have also been issue 900. No, we're going to get a new #1. It's because John Romita Jr. has come back from DC and will be doing this book, written by Zeb Wells, who is currently working with the team on the Beyond story. So one of the same writers, new artist, new #1. Be there, aloha.
And number 2, of course, the same month.
I'll probably get the peach mimocha. Because mimochas.
You know what? Should we just keep flipping pages? Because I'm pretty sure the next one is something we wanted to go for.
Yeah.
Yep. Page 8. Another, to start over, Captain America 0. Boy, how do you pronounce his name? Toshi Onyebuchi.
Yep.
Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing, Art Mattia Del Luis.
Yes.
And let's see, Armin Zola launches a catastrophic attack on New York City. He meets his match in Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. In the explosive battle that follows, 2 Captain Americas prove better than 1. So Sam and Steve decide they might as well keep a good thing going. And that was enough to get my interest. I will say I wanted to go for the Adam Hughes variant cover, but it wasn't listed. So that means it must be one of those expensive incentive covers. So I just went with the normal 0. But here's the jumping on point. And you look on the cover of the Alex Ross, which I believe comes in the Steve Rogers and the Sam Wilson and that's Steve Ross. The wraparound variant cover by Mark Brooks is shown, which is amazing. And it shows it's a who's who's been messing with Cap, friends, foes. Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't been excited for Cap in a while, but I am right now. And you know, I misspoke because if you go to the previous page, 6 and 7, there are your Alex Ross covers. So that's kind of cool. We're going to make this easy on you. Turn the page. That's the next one I'm recommending. Hulk versus Thor Banner of War Alpha. I mention this because if you read Thor or you read Hulk, the books weave into this one shot and then weave back out into Thor 25 and Hulk 7. So, you know, there's
and
a new
it's by
Thor.
the writer who's doing both those series.
Yeah, you got a new Thor, you got a new Hulk. I got to tell you, as of now, I just finished reading Thor, and I'm still loving Thor. Still having a tough time wrapping my head around Hulk. And again, I liked that first issue, but the last couple ones kind of caught me like, what's going on? So, but I'm going to stick around long enough to see this. And again, this is more of an alert rather than a, well, I'm buying it. But again, if you haven't, you know, when you go from Hulk 6 to 24, here's your warning. Make sure you get this one shot.
Daredevil is also getting a new #1 because of the end of Devil's Reign, but it's the same creative team. So if you're already buying it, just keep buying it.
Yep, keep buying it. Good stuff.
I do want to point out, however, I don't have page numbers because I'm doing this digital.
It's on page 18, if it's what I think you're talking about.
Elektra #1 is written by Ann Nocenti, and they are doing this as kind of a one-shot. It would be Elektra's 100th issue, but Ann Nocenti never got to write an Elektra story, so the Daredevil editorial office asked her if she had one. She said yes, and I think this is going to be really spectacular because, one, she's a great writer, and two, she actually wanted to use Elektra, but was told, well, no, she's dead, and only Frank Miller can use her. This was back in the 80s. So that's why she created Typhoid Mary.
Typhoid Mary, yeah.
Who was a similar character but different. So I'm really looking forward to see what she will do with Elektra. The art is Paulo Siqueira and Ty Templeton, who, first off, Ty Templeton, fantastic artist and writer. And second, Ty Templeton is currently going through chemotherapy. Has his spirits up, often talks about the movies he watches while he's going through chemo. And anything that I could do to support him, I'm going to do. What's next, JoJo?
I don't really care about the new X-Men stuff. I am on the verge of doing what you do, getting Marvel Unlimited again, because my previous account is no longer active because we changed banks and I can't access the Gmail account email to like cancel it and start over. I am, however, going to pick up on page 24, Giant Size X-Men Thunderbird #1. It's from All Elite Wrestling superstar Nyla Rose. She is doing a one-shot featuring the first X-Men to die into action, and I am all about bringing people from outside comics in. Cory probably knows more about Nyla Rose because you cover All Elite Wrestling for...
Yep, Nyla Rose is a Native American wrestler. She's transgender, and this is the first time that Thunderbird will be written by a Native American. I think it's, other than the Marvel Voices that came out about a year and a half ago, this is the first major comic featuring a Native American character written by a Native American. It's also the first time we have seen Thunderbird since he was killed in X-Men '94. And I am still trying to get an interview with Nyla Rose for this podcast and for PWInsiderElite.com about this book.
Cool. So you got that looking for him. So honestly, you guys would feel pretty silly listening to Cory talking to Nyla and not having read this. So go buy it. What you got next?
What do I have next?
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of regular comics next because
I've got
we're
two
through
more
all
regulars.
the number ones.
I got two more regulars I'll point out on page. Actually, just flip the page again. Page 27, Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood. It's a 4-issue series taking the character and doing what they've done with other characters. It'll all be black and white and with red blood. John Hickman's writing it. Chris Pachalo is art. There are a whole bunch of people doing it. It's an anthology type thing. Buy it in a book. I'm buying it as regular issue because I want to see what it's like. And then on page 37, you thought he was dead, but no, he can't be dead if there's a new movie coming out. Doctor Strange, Nexus of Nightmares by Ralph Macchio. No, not the guy who was on Happy Days. But again, this is just, I think you explained it to me, Cory. It's a one-shot because the movie's coming out and you got to have something with his name on it.
Yes, what it is, whenever they put out a movie, Ralph Macchio, former editor at Marvel,
and Happy Days star.
No.
Oh, no? Oh.
He will do a one-shot
that's on MASH.
That's set in the Marvel Universe, but is kind of an introduction, kind of a, basically just a one-shot story. He's done it for a number of books. They're okay. How much is it?
It's a normal comic, $3.99.
Yeah. It's an okay read.
Yeah.
His stuff, you're never going to read one of these books and go, wow, that was amazing. But you're also never going to read them and go, well, that was a terrible waste of time. They are good, well-structured comic book stories by a guy who knows the characters inside and out. I enjoy them, but for most people, you probably just want to wait and read it on the app. Let's see. Was there anything else regular comic-wise that jumped out at me?
That was it for me, comic-wise. I was tempted with Spider-Punk, the miniseries, but I think I'm going to pick that up as a graphic novel. And I honestly don't have any graphic novels other than Iron Man Volume 3 because I've been reading the current run as a graphic novel. So here's where I just sit back and listen to Cory wow me with some of the stuff he's buying.
With all the stuff Marvel is doing, they are putting out a Spider-Man The Wedding Album Gallery Edition. This has the stories leading up to the Spider-Man marriage, the what-ifs around it. Let's see, it's Spider-Man 290 to 292, Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 21, which was the wedding, Spectacular Spider-Man Annual number 7, which was the honeymoon, What If 20 and 21, which was a what if story about it, Marvel Saga, the official history of the Marvel Universe 22, which was a lead-in showing everything leading up to it, and then a story from Not Brand Ech number 6, which I would have to go back. The whole story of Spider-Man getting married is just kind of weird. So Stan Lee was doing the Spider-Man comic strip. And this was at a point in, this was 86, 87, where he was still doing the strip. He eventually did hand it off to Roy Thomas and never credited Roy. Oh, I bet you didn't know that, did you? So he said, I'm going to have Peter Parker and Mary Jane get married in the comic strip. They should get married in the comic as well. Jim Shooter, who would do whatever Stan told him, which is, kind of, it's good in some ways, but bad in others. Joe, do you remember the nose on Iron Man? Those few months
Yes.
where he had a nose on Iron Man? That was because Stan Lee came in the office one time, take a look at Iron Man mask, said, shouldn't he have a nose on that thing? So they drew it like that, and it looked stupid and annoying. And the next time Stan came in the office, said, why did you mess up Iron Man's face? That nose looks stupid. But he went to Jim Shooter and said, hey, I'm going to have them get married. You should have them get married in the comic. And they actually put together a big publicity thing where they had Spider-Man and Mary Jane get married at Yankee Stadium before a game. Well, the problem was the people working on Spider-Man first were all in flux because it was a messy time for Spider-Man because Tom DeFalco had gotten fired and the editor who fired him got in a lot of trouble, and they didn't have a regular creative team on Spider-Man, and they'd sort of written Mary Jane out of the book. So real quickly, they had to write Mary Jane back in the book, have Peter Parker propose to her. This time she had to say yes.
Because he had proposed to her, which what drove her out of the book.
Yeah. Twice, by the way.
Yeah.
So he proposed to her. This time she said yes. And they had to rush through the story, which is why when you read it, let's see, it's written by Jim Shooter because no one else would write it. They were like, I'm not writing that. So Shooter wrote it. John Romita Jr. drew it. And from what he has said, he basically just did really rough layouts because it had to be done in a short amount of time. It's an annual, so it's double size, but they had less time to do it than they had a regular comic. Then it went over to Vince Colletta, who did a slapjack job literally over a weekend. He was given the pages on Friday, was told they needed to be in by end of business Monday. And when you read Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 21, you can see that in all of its glory. It is an ugly, ugly comic. And then Marvel spent the next 20 years trying to undo the marriage because Jim Shooter's the one who started it. And by the time it got all done and printed, Shooter had been fired. And nobody at Marvel liked the idea of Spider-Man being married. Nobody. That's why you got the Clone Saga. That's why you got Mary Jane's plane blowing up when John Byrne took over the book. And it was why you got One More Day. All of it was because they were like, shit, we married Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Now what the hell are we going to do? So yet another time when I worked at a group home, when someone would do stuff as they're leaving that would blow up later, we would call them landmines. This was one of the biggest landmines in Marvel history because Shooter was like, okay, Stan said we're getting them married. We're getting them married. And then he didn't have to be there to deal with the fallout. The funny thing is, now, Joe, I don't know if you read the Spider-Man strip, but when they did the One More Day, they also, in the comic strip, had it where Peter Parker and Mary Jane weren't married anymore. And after a couple of months, Stan said, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. So all of those stories where they were no longer married, that was a dream. But if you want the Spider-Man wedding, here it is. It's a gallery edition, which means it's a little larger than comic size. And for some of the art, it's not worth it. When we go to the omnibuses, which is what gets most of my money these days. Black Panther by Christopher Priest, Omnibus Volume 1. This was part of the Marvel Knights. And Christopher Priest, first black writer to write Black Panther. He took a lot of what Don McGregor had done and built on it. It lasted, I think it lasted like 60 some issues. This is the first half, which is Black Panther 1 through 33. And then the next book, these are two books that I've read in the app, and it's like, these are good enough, I want to have them, is one that I wanted to buy when it originally came out. Now they're reprinting it with the entire series, and that is Immortal Iron Fist and the Immortal Weapons Omnibus. Drawn by David Aja, written by Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction. This is by far the best Iron Fist story ever done. I love this book. And David Aja is the guy who drew the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series, which is also one of my favorite books. David Aja is just a fantastic artist. His page design, the way he tells a story, blows me away. I'm really excited that I'm finally going to be able to get a copy of this book. And the previous one was just the Matt Fraction and Brubaker stuff. This is the entire series, which is Immortal Iron Fist 1 through 27, annual number 1, all of the one-shots, the Immortal Weapons miniseries, which is kind of the backstory for their revamp of Iron Fist. In a book that annoys me, X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. They're doing those two, X Lives of Wolverine 1 through 5, X Deaths of Wolverine 1 through 5. It's 288 pages for $75. That's almost double what their normal hardcovers at that size cost. That's omnibus cost for a book that's half of omnibus size. I'm probably waiting for the trade paperback on that, even though it does tie in with all the X-Men stuff. Matter of fact, if you look, the next thing is Immortal Hulk Volume 5. I just finished Immortal Hulk, by the way. 296 pages for $39.99. So it can be done. You know, you can't do it that cheap.
No.
They're just not going to, because it's Wolverine.
Snick.
And let's see, I think you were the one who said that you were going to start looking at the Epic collections.
I say that, but then, you know, an
That
omnibus
money.
here, an omnibus there. You know, plus, like you said, if I'm going to really go the app, you had something interesting to say. Isn't there like an Iron Man one or something this month?
Well, first off, Devil's Reign, which was that Daredevil story that ended the Kingpin is Mayor of New York, they're putting it out as a whole bunch of trade paperbacks rather than an omnibus.
And I'll wait. You'll do an omnibus eventually.
I would buy it as an omnibus,
My money.
but otherwise I'll just read it on the app. Okay, and then Reign of X number 12, where they collect the X-Men story in kind of continuity order. Oh, and there's a huge ad for all the Doctor Strange books that are out. All right, for the Epic collections, there is Generation X Volume 2, which reprints Generation X 10 through 23, 2 of the annuals. When this book originally came out, I bought it because of Chris Bacalo's art. By this point, Chris Bacalo was already moving off the book. It had become kind of the 90s version of the New Mutants. For Iron Man, this is Iron Man Epic Collection, Volume 5, Battle Royale, Volume 5. It reprints Iron Man 47 through 67, which has the first appearance of Thanos, Drax the Destroyer, and Moondragon. And other than that issue, which isn't very good, this is when Iron Man was god-awful to read.
Yeah,
It's
see, that's the thing I
dull.
worry about doing the epics is, you know, getting into a run that's like, but again, like you said, if I get the app,
Then you can read it and go, boy, I'm glad I didn't spend $40 on that.
Yeah. And plus, I got a lot of this in my essentials anyways.
This was kind of when Iron Man was coasting on the fact that it was a Marvel comic. And it was very much a formulaic Marvel comic. The stories were never all that interesting, which is weird because you got Mike Friedrich. It was okay. Jim Starlin in the story he did that when he got fired because of the story he did with Thanos, by the way. Have I told that story?
It doesn't sound familiar.
So he does this story with Thanos. And the first thing is that when he turns it in, Roy Thomas looks at it and says, hey, if you're going to steal characters from the new gods, steal the one that matters, Darkseid, because in this, Thanos is kind of drawn more like Metron. Steal the only one that's any good. And then when Stan Lee saw it, he said, this book is terrible. Don't let him draw Iron Man anymore. And that's when Starlin kind of got moved. You know, he would bounce around doing fill-ins and stuff till he got Captain Marvel. But boy, it's pretty rare that Stan Lee looks at a book and goes, yeah, this is awful. Fire him. The New Mutants collects the end of the beginning, which is the last issues of the New Mutants, number 95 through 100. Then it's that tie-in that relaunched all the X-Men books in 1991. So it's the Liefeld stories and the annuals and the crossovers. And it's weird. It's only 6 issues of the New Mutants, and all the tie-ins come to 504 pages. Are also reprinting Amazing Spider-Man, the first Epic collection. So do not pay $400 for it on Amazon or eBay. Yes, I have seen it listed at that much. Here it is for $44.99. The first 17 issues of Spider-Man. What the first Wolverine Epic collection, which reprints the story from Marvel Comics Presents, and the first 16 issues of Wolverine when he was Patch in Madripoor, because putting a patch on one of his eyes was a perfect disguise. No one could tell that Patch and Wolverine were the same guy.
That fooled me. I mean, it's like putting on a pair of glasses. Who'd have thunk?
And that's it for Marvel. Now we get to
the rest.
The rest of the catalog. Where are we now? It's been an hour and 30 minutes.
All right. Should we? Well, let's see how fast we can bang through this one. Because again, not a lot.
I do want to point out on page 214 and 215, their focus for this month is Black History Month. So they have what they call the Black History Month backlist. There is a book in here that I want to point out that I've read recently and is utterly fantastic. If you are at all interested in comics history, the book Invisible Men, the Trailblazing Black Artists of Comic Books. It's a Yo book. I just read it. It's about Black creators in comics through the golden, atomic, and silver age. Won an Eisner. Taught me so much about comics history that I just did not know. If you're at all interested in comic history, that is a must buy. They've also got The Wrong Earth. And the reason they have The Wrong Earth is because it's drawn by Jamal Igle. He drew The Wrong Earth. We've talked about it before. It's from Ahoy, where it's you've got the 60s clean version of a hero and the 90s gritty version of a hero, and they accidentally get transported to each other's worlds. Love that book. Joe, what's the first thing in the rest of the catalog that jumps out at you?
All right, on to page 224. Give you a moment not to get there and without getting a paper cut. Something called Midnight Rose. This is by Jim Starlin, artist Nicole Jelinek. It's a 64-page one-shot, kind of on the horror realm. It's a, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Journey through the life of a singular, frightening, and very human creature, Midnight Rose. Particularly bizarre tale of loneliness, love, what happens when you can't help but give in to the vengeance growing deep within yourself. As a one-shot, I figured, cool. I went with the cover you see on page 224. There's a Jim Starlin incentive cover on the other page if you're so inclined. Incentive means you're going to pay more for it if you want it.
You go to page 219. They are resoliciting a book that I was mad when it got canceled. Marvel Value Stamps, A Visual History, written by Roy Thomas. Now, back in the 70s, Marvel did these Marvel Value Stamps. And if you've ever bought a Hulk 181 and it's worth less than half of what it should be, it's because somebody went to the letters page and they cut out that Marvel value stamp. In 1974, Marvel Comics publisher Stan Lee devised a promotional campaign, the Marvel Value Stamp, which appeared on the letters pages in all their monthly comics. Readers could cut out all 100 of these superhero and supervillain stamps, place them in a special mail-order booklet. Once complete, these stamp books could then be redeemed for special discounts and exclusive merchandise. The program was so successful, a second set was released in 1975, and now, the first time, these original stamp books, stamps, and all the surrounding ephemera and source material are collected into one must-have volume. This is from the same people who put out the Marvel Mini Comics book last year, which is beautiful and has an excellent essay in it about the history of those little mini books that you would get out of the coin vending machines back in the 60s by Mark Avenir. This is going to be all written up by Roy Thomas, who was editor-in-chief of Marvel when they did the Marvel value stamps. And you don't have to cut up your comics to get them. Joe?
On page 236, a quick point out. I talked about it before. My Bad by Mark Russell and our friend Peter Krause. It's in a trade paperback in case you weren't smart enough to buy it as a regular issue. Speaking of regular issues, on page 238, The Grunch. Welcome to the Brooderhood. It's through American mythology. The woods are alive with the sound of evil. Straight from the pages of the swampy legends of the Louisiana Bayou comes a new generation of terror with Bite, the Grunch, part twisted human, part ghastly beast, all teeth and hunger. Come along with your tour guide, Johnny Detour, get it, and his band of misfit vloggers as they delve deep into the murky myths surrounding the murderous brood. Finding the carnivorous clan is only half the battle. Getting out alive is the real trick. A couple different variant covers to go for. Come on.
Page 241, this is a fourth issue. I am pointing it out because this is Don McGregor back on Zorro. Zorro Flights number 4. You can also order issue 1 and 2 and 3. You know, you could go to your comic shop and say you want issues 2 and 3 as well because they're not out yet. But this is Don McGregor back on Zorro. He wrote Zorro for Topps Comics back in the 90s, which gave us Lady Rawhide, and also did the Zorro comic strip from the 90s until it was eventually put down in the early 2000s. I love Don McGregor. Joe?
I love trains. And on page 278, The Boys in the Basement, conceived, written, and illustrated by award-winning comic book creator Don Lomax. The Boys in the Basement cartoon strip appeared as a series within the pages of Modeling Railroading magazine, hence the train love. It takes a humorous look at the world of model trains from the perspective of 3 men, Merle and his friends Lenny and Earl. Merle, Lenny, and Earl, and their obsessions and love of the hobby. Rail enthusiasts, those who love them, will appreciate Lomax's talent to humorously depict what is it like to be a train aficionado. Sorry, my lips are starting to slow down. I will point out directly below it, from Cathead Comics, 40-Hour Man graphic novel. Is it a career or a series of really lame jobs? Stephen Beaupre and Steve Lafleur pose this timeless question in 40-Hour Man, a hilarious saga of one working stiff's 3-decade journey into the minimum wage heart of the American dream. It's all there, from scrubbing a steakhouse floor with a toothbrush to going bust in the internet boom to working on a thankless podcast to groping people at the airport. Wait a minute, what? Sorry, my eyes went fuzzy there for a minute. Anyways, it's all there. 40-Hour Man.
If you go to page 268, Binge Books has another book that I'm getting. I did get the kids book that we talked about months and months ago, and I did not care for it. So from now on with Binge Books, I'm not buying everything they do, just buying the stuff that looks interesting. Why am I buying Blue Baron Enter Blockback? Because it's drawn by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema. I will buy anything drawn by Sal Buscema. A superpowered vandal called Blowback is leaving critical government facilities defenseless, and the only hero who can stop him now has the mind of a 13-year-old. The unbeatable Blue Baron makes his triumphant return in the senses-shattering triple-size epic, culminating with a blockbuster battle that only one will survive. Top TV writer Dan Henry, legendary artist Ron Friends, and Sal Buscema follow up on last year's dynamic debut with the self-contained extravaganza at 68 pages for $4.99. The problem I have with this advertising is this was back when binge books weren't available in previews and most comic shops, so we don't know that this is a return of a hero, and I still remember. It's gonna stick in my craw for the rest of my life, Joe.
Craw.
When they put out that first book, the Justice whatever, and I said, "Oh, I'd like to." I went to their online shop. I'd like to get your other books. Oh, they're all going to be available in previews in a couple of months. None of them have been made available in previews. They're still not available in the store. They just don't want me to buy their books. They just don't.
They don't.
So I guess I won't. If you're going to make it hard to buy your books, guess what? I'm not going to buy your books.
What page was that? What page are you on?
That was on page. Now I have to go back. 268.
Well, I'm going to flip a number on page 286. Two things. One I'm going to point out, one I'm going to talk about. If you're a Godzilla fan, pick up G-Fan magazine. It's been published forever. I remember having this in the shop. Wonderful interviews with people from Japan. You'll get news of upcoming stuff, if there is any, as well as revisiting old things. And again, it's fairly inexpensive as magazines go, but in this day and age, you got to help them out as best you can. Up above, Dead Reckoning, The Stretcher Bearers. A little bit of history type thing. Maxwell Fox didn't know what he would witness in France. America's only been at war. They've only been in the Great War since April 6, 1917. Nothing could have prepared him for the horrors that awaited him and the rest of the men of 4th Infantry Ivy Division. As the war raged on, they were assigned to a unit of stretcher bearers, men who were tasked with running into harm's way to rescue their fallen brethren from the clutches of death. A dark and honest look at the bond of brotherhood during World War I. The Stretcher Bearers tells the unforgettable tale of young soldiers trying to save the lives of wounded soldiers and keep the men he'd formed a bond with alive.
On page 288, they are reprinting one of the top 10 graphic novels I recommend constantly. It's a good life if you don't weaken by Seth. Seth started as an autobiographical comic creator and slowly moved into fiction. The last big thing he did was Clyde Fans, which I absolutely adored. When trying to understand his ennui, Seth discovers the life and work of Kalo, a forgotten New Yorker cartoonist from the 40s, but his obsession blinds him to the needs of his lover and the quiet desperation of his family. Wry self-reflection and moody colors characterize his tale about learning lessons from nostalgia. His playful and sophisticated experiment with memoir provoked a furious debate among comic historians and archivists about the existence of Kalo, and prompted a details feature about Seth's hoax, because he never said this wasn't autobiographical, and all the comics he had done before this was autobiographical, but this is self-insertion fiction. So if you take that whole thing out and just read it as a book, it is a fantastic book. But boy, people got mad when he said, no, this is fiction. What? But it's you, and it's He has since learned to use all fictional characters. Joe, what's next?
Oh, let's see. Back one page, 287. There are a bunch of graphic novels, including stuff from, this one's from Dial Books. It's called Dancing at the Pity Party. Let's see, Tyler Feeder had just white-knuckled her way through her first year of college when her Supergirl mom was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. Now, with a decade of grief and nervous laughter under her belt, Tyler shares the story of that gut-wrenching, heart-pounding, extremely awkward time in her life. From her mom's first oncology appointment to her funeral, through the beginning of facing reality as a motherless daughter. She shares the sting of loss that never goes away, the uncomfortable post-death firsts, the deep down, hard to talk about feeling of the grieving process. Yeah, it probably occurred to you that, for fun, I'll read Marvel DC. For my graphic novels, I tend to go a little more serious slice of life stuff. Again, on to the next page where Cory, again, I recommend the same thing. It's A Good Life If You Don't Weaken from Seth. I also recommend Third Person, which is a riveting memoir from newcomer Emma Grove, drawn in thick, emotive lines, the refined style of a comic vet. Grove has created a singular, gripping depiction of that intersection of identities and trauma as she and her therapist, Toby, grapple with the possible disconnective identity disorder, something we used to call schizophrenia, as she seeks approval for her gender-affirming care. It's a testament to the importance of having space to heal and live authentically. Directly under it, Fire, from some guy you might have heard about, Peter Bagg. Peter Bagg's biography of Zora Neale Hurston is a bold and dazzling story as brilliant as life itself. Hurston challenged the norms of what it was expected of an African-American woman in the early 20th century. She arrived in New York City at the height of the Harlem Renaissance, surrounded by peers such as Langston Hughes, Wallace Thurgood. Hurston went on to become a noted folklorist, and critically acclaimed novelist, including her most provocative work, Their Eyes Were Watching God. And the other thing is directly across from it, This Is How I Disappear. Miriam Malley paints an empathetic portrait of a young woman wrestling with psychological stress and the trauma following an experience of sexual assault, filled with 21st century idioms and social media communication. This Is How I Disappear opens a window into the lives of young people as they face a barrage of mental health hurdles. All these books, including the previous one, The Stretcher Bear, I kind of put under the category of, empathy. Woke for you guys who like that term. I've never fought in World War I. My mother hasn't died. I've had no problems with dissociative identity disorder. I have no dealings with sexual assault. I know nothing of Zora Neale Hurston. These graphic novels are what comics can aspire to be. Yeah, I think it's fun when Galactus comes down and, everybody beats his ass again. But this is the height of what a good graphic novel can be. It can put you in a situation you probably never, God forbid, have been in or will be in, but allow you to maybe live through the eyes of people who have. Same thing with Seth's book above. Drawn and Quarterly is a wonderful place to find these books, and I absolutely love finding them and reading them. So, excuse me while I step off my soapbox and turn it over to Cory. What's the next one you're looking at?
On page 337, Hawk the Slayer, based on the movie from the 80s, one of those Conan knockoffs. Why am I buying a book that says a few years have passed since Hawk and his trusty band of warriors defeated the evil wizard Voltan, but Hawk is still uneasy, fearing that the dark wizards have only temporarily disappeared and are due to return. Once again, Hawk must assemble a team of warriors to confront the returning evil. The Mind Sword may be the key to saving the world, but is it also responsible for those ungodly forces? Joe, why would I buy a book like that?
Who wrote it?
Garth Ennis.
Bingo!
And drawn by Henry Flint.
Oh.
Garth Ennis is going to take those cliches, turn them upside down, polish them up, make them weird, and show you just how amazing they can be. Also on the same page, Judge Dredd, The Complete Case Files, Volume 39. This is a chronological reprinting of all of the Judge Dredd stories from 2000 AD. Now, you may think to yourself, oh, I don't want to buy the books. I'll just buy the back issues. 2000 AD has 2,250 issues now. You're not going to be able to collect them all. Just buy the books. I love Judge Dredd. You know, we should do an entire episode on British comics at some point. And it'd just be us talking about Judge Dredd, and we don't know any other comics. Joe, what's next? Joe? Hello?
Sorry, I had to cough, so I muted.
I'm
on page 294. A Hunter's Tale number 0. This comic was originally up. Okay, I'm going to read this as the creator, because that's how it's written up. The creator is Charles Kermit Claytor. This comic was originally a poem written by my late grandfather, Charles Hermit Claytor, that was adapted and illustrated into a comic book by me, Ryan Claytor, who I guess that's whose voice this is in. It's about two seemingly disparate subjects, a hunter and his prey, who form an unlikely understanding of one another. At its core, it's about different world views, finding empathy. There you go. Again, I thought that was very, very interesting that it's his grandfather's poem and he's illustrating it. And across from it, something Lady Bird from Four Square Comics that looks very interesting. It's on page 294. Check it out.
On page 361. Yes, there's the Tomorrow's magazines that we always pick up, but there's also a book, The Life and Art of Dave Cockrum. Dave Cockrum, one of my favorite artists. First issue of the X-Men I bought with my own money was X-Men 100 because when I was in the hospital, my uncle had given me a whole stack of comics, one of which was Giant Size X-Men number 2. Which was the reprint of the Neil Adams, Roy Thomas Sentinel story. Fantastic story. I was hooked. I wanted more X-Men. I saw X-Men number 100. Oh, look, the X-Men are fighting all these weird characters, and the guy who's drawing it draws a lot like Neil Adams. And I read it, and it's like, wait, the X-Men are robots? Who's this Wolverine guy? He's a psycho. I am confused. That was Dave Cockrum. From the letters pages of Silver Age Comics to his 2021 induction into the Will Eisner Hall of Fame, the career of Dave Cockrum started at the bottom, then rose to the top of the comic book industry. In the 70s, whenever they wanted to update a costume, first at DC with the Legion of Superheroes, Dave Cockrum is the one who updated all those costumes. Then at Marvel, when they didn't have Jack Kirby to do it, they had Dave Cockrum to do it. All of the costumes of the original X-Men, any revamped costume, including the Ms. Marvel costume with the sash. He's the one who did all that. His art was fantastic. He, Gil Kane, and Jack Kirby were kind of the guys who did all the covers for Marvel in the 70s because his images were just fantastic. They jumped out at you. And this is a book about his art and his life. Cannot wait to get it. Joe?
Cory, you ever been attacked by a grizzly bear?
No.
Well,
I do have a story about that, though.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do it before or after I talk about I Survive Attack of the Grizzlies?
I'll do it after your story.
Okay, because on page 306, a true story, I Survived Attack of the Grizzlies, 1967. No grizzly has ever killed a human before in Glacier National Park until that day. 11-year-old Melody Vega and her family come to Glacier every year. Mel loves it there. The beautiful landscapes, the wildlife make it easy to forget her real-world troubles. But this year is different. With Mom gone, every moment in the park is a reminder of the past. Then Mel comes face to face with a mighty grizzly. She knows her bear safety. Don't turn your back. Don't make any sudden movements. And most importantly, don't run. That last one's the hardest for Mel. She's been running from her problems all her life. She wants to survive tonight. She'll have to find the courage to face her fear. This is based on a real-life grizzly attack of 1967. You have a choice between a softcover for $11, hardcover for $25. I went with the softcover. Now, Cory has a story. Cory's story. Hey, that sounds like a podcast.
I was dating a woman once who liked camping and was trying to get to talk me into camping. Now, Joe, for me, roughing it is going to a hotel that doesn't have Turner Classic Movies. But you're dating. You'll go. You'll get along. You'll do. So anyway, she was trying to talk me into camping, and she got me this brochure about camping in the wild and things you should do and things you shouldn't do. And one of the things in the brochure was if a bear is coming to attack you, play dead. And I read that and I looked at her and I said, I think that this brochure was written by a bear. She was like, what are you talking about? Well, the brochure says if a bear's going to attack you, you should play dead. Well, yeah. No, the bear's telling you to do that because it doesn't want to work. It doesn't want to chase you. If you're just laying there, it could come up, grab you, kill you, eat you. It doesn't have to do any work. This was written by a bear. She did not find that funny. Me, on the other hand, yeah, I think it's hilarious.
I'm kind of sick. I actually found that funny.
And that's it for me on regular comics, Joe.
All right, I got 4 more. I'll flip through quick. Page 338, Red 5 Comics, Stonebot. 78 miles per hour. Earth is no longer what it used to be. An environmental catastrophe transformed the atmosphere into a large magnifying glass that enhances solar radiation. A nuclear disaster slowed down at the speed of the rotation of the planet. Anyone that moves slower than 78 miles per hour will not escape from the scorching sun. Only a small group of people will be able to survive on this new world by constantly moving this huge rolling city, never stopping. Let's see.
That sounds like the opposite of Snowpiercer, which is the world has frozen and the train needs to keep going or everything on it will freeze and die.
That's probably well, I don't know. If Mario or Thomas want to come on the show and talk about it, come on for it.
Yeah.
Back on page 306, underneath the grizzly bear, Red Scare. This page-turning sci-fi adventure set in 1953 features a clever girl who, against all odds, must outsmart bullies, the FBI, and alien invaders during the height of the communist Red Scare. Sure, she's scared. Peggy's struggling to recover from polio, needs crutches to walk, and she needs her neighbors. She and her neighbors are worried about the rumors of communist spies doing bad things. On top of that, Peggy has a hard time at school and gets taunted by her classmates. When she finds a mysterious artifact that gives her the ability to fly, she thinks this is the solution to all her problems. But if Peggy wants to keep it, she'll have to overcome bullies, outsmart FBI, and escape from some very strange spies. Again, softcover for $15, hardcover for $25. I've got middle class poverty. I went for a softcover. Page 342. Vanity number 1. This is from, and I got to flip back a page. This is from Scout Comics under their Black Caravan imprint. Every great legend has a beginning, and horror stories are no different. However, as our tale, as it's based on true story, begins at the very end, the legendary Blood Countess Elizabeth Batlery is dead. Gravediggers are assigned to relocate her corpse. But who was she really? Was she a victim? Monster? Here we witness her birth, her childhood, and see the earliest moment of her life through her eyes. This includes her first encounter with death and blood that awakens the beast that lurks within her innocent yet twisted mind. From there, go to page 348. And a couple books just look interesting. From Source Point Press, Classic Pulp Robots and Sham Comics number 1. Written by various people. All the Classic Pulp Robots is vintage tales of mankind's most terrifying creation. No, not Spam and Twinkie. It's robots. It's created and digitally remastered to their original colors and quality by Joshua Warner. Across from it, weird tales of magic and mayhem from past, present, and future you'll find in Sham Comics. Again, rewritten by Tim Fuller with art by a plethora of people, including a Jack Kirby. Let's see. This is visit a haunted house with Bozo the Robot. Tour the Fourth Dimension with some confirmed bachelors. Thrill as Conrad the Aryan Barbarian battles a big old spider, and more. Just looks fun. On the final one is on page 380. And while I flip my page forward, this is a book from Will Wheaton, Still Just a Geek, an annotated memoir. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but you just know I love annotations. I admire Will Wheaton. I think he went through too much crap, which really wasn't his fault. But, you know, he went from what seemed to be a great career to fizzle and then became a social media supernova. This talks him talking about pretty much everything. And I absolutely love this stuff. So that's it for me. And now, of course, our new segment of podcasting, in case you didn't think it was enough, this is for Brian. Brian wrote in and said, you know, you guys never flip the previews over, so I'm going to do it. And we're going to go look through what, if Cory and I had unlimited money, we would buy.
Or we're toy collectors.
Yeah, or toy collectors. Well, just pretty much what we would buy. And sometimes I do buy. And, you know, Cory, you only, how many did you said you just had one, right?
Yeah, I have two, actually.
Okay.
The first one, and there has been a change since we did this, by the way.
Ooh.
It is the Go Games Retro Portable. This is a portable handheld video game that has older games. It has some of the games from, let's see here. It has some legit games. It says it's loaded with over 300 fun and easy to play games. It has some ROMs from video games you know. Most of the games, I looked it up, most of the games you don't know. But I fell down the rabbit hole of YouTube into these console emulators. And what it is, because you can build a computer real cheap, real small, with what it's called Raspberry Pi, they make these what they call Android boxes, which is kind of just, it's a small computer that runs Android, and they can add what are called game ROMs, which are quasi-legal versions of old video games. And I ordered one that is called the Super Console X. It has 50,000 retro games, all the way up to the Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, and Dreamcast emulated on it. And they put all the games on a not a thumb drive, but a little memory card. And it emulates those games. So you can play them, and they play pretty much like the originals, including arcade games. And it was less than $100. They also have emulator handhelds, which do the same thing, and this is one of those. But I went and I got one of the Super Console X's because I'd watched too many videos, and it's like, I want to play those old games. But if I had unlimited funds, I would go to page 85. Marvel's Man-Thing designer vinyl.
Oh, yes, yes.
This exciting collaboration with famed toy designer James Groman brings his unique style to full display with this limited edition Man-Thing soft vinyl figure. With 3 points of articulation, this massive 12-inch tall figure is a sight to behold. And they have a small picture of it there, and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's not the Man-Thing we know, but it's a very cool version of it. Joe, what's your pick?
Well, as long as you're an 85, I was just going to point out underneath the Man-Thing was something that's kind of fun for your Harry Potter fans. Harry Potter conversation cards. You pull them out, 125 one-of-a-kind cards, and you ask, what memory would you use to conjure a Patronus? What career would you pursue in the wizarding world? What subject would you most be interested in taking at Hogwarts? And who would you choose to be your secret keeper? 72-page booklet featuring behind-the-scenes insight, film stills, all sorts of fun stuff. So if you got a Harry Potter fan, it's just a kind of an interesting Harry Potter fun type game. Go back to page 29, top page, Jaws, Bruce the Shark Jumbo 26-inch plush. Not that I'm big on plush, but this one has an opening belly with removable contents, a scuba tank, shredded yellow raft, orca stern plaque, dog collar, and license plate. The belly contents are printed on heavy felt, so they're not going to break, and they also come with a zipper fastening, so you won't be losing it. I just thought that was interesting. Under the category of, I wish I was born rich and good looking, the Boys Homelander 1/6 scale figure on page 73. You get the regular version for $280, the deluxe version for $297, and don't forget the diorama accessories for a mere $89. This matches the other figure that I believe that was offered last month. On page 74, mere flip away, there's a couple Judge Dredd figures a little more affordable. They're only $20. You get a Judge Dredd 1/18 scale exquisite mini figurine, or the Judge Death figure, or get them both. You know you want them. They're designed by co-creator Brian Bolin, which is pretty sweet. And finally, on page 93, if you want to scare the bejesus out of anybody walking past your desk at work, get the Dungeons and Dragons Beholder figurine. It's only $14, and if let's just say that the little hand drawing I've ever seen of Beyonder is nothing. This thing is genuinely terrifying, especially if you love your Dungeons and Dragons. And that, as we like to say now, is for Brian.
Joe, I'm very disappointed in you.
Again? I mean, what did I do this time?
I thought for sure you would go to page 86.
86?
Now, for me, the Marvel, the General Mills Serial Monster portrait pins, they're cool, but I lose pins. Yeah. But I thought for sure you would get the WWE WrestleMania Championship Belt fanny pack, because there's nothing cooler in the world than a fanny pack.
I don't know. I'm not covering my fanny fund. Nothing.
You know who does cover your fanny when you're on the internet and there's danger about?
Danger?
These guys, our sponsors. And if you think that us talking for 2 hours and 10 minutes about what's in previews isn't enough, I do these other podcasts. And now that we've done all that, Joe, let's not make this a 3-hour podcast.
No.
I'm not. eBay's?
I usually on the preview show, I don't talk about what's going on in the previews. We'll say that for next week. But I'm going to make this special deal. This is my pre-Hawaiian deal for just listeners of this here podcast. Let's see, this podcast should drop probably February 28th, barring any technical details, from February 28th to March 7th. Just for listeners of this here podcast, go to my eBay store page, and you can find it easy. Half price.
Woo!
You want a half price. I got a couple caveats. So first of all, there's a few things I may not be able to do because I'm either selling them for the MCBF's charity booth, or let's just put it this way. If they're under $5-6, I can't afford to ship them that because shipping's going to be more than that. What I will do is ship those items if you choose for $4. What's that mean? I'm just shipping it to you for free, just for fans of our show. I'm not offering this to anybody else. I'm not advertising it outside this here podcast. Just when you make an offer, or if you see something you like and you're going to send me a note saying, hey, I'm interested in this, tell me you're a listener of this here podcast, because otherwise I get, hey, will you take this $1,000 X-Men #1 for half price? I'm going to go, no. But if you tell me it's this here podcast, first of all, there's not one on there, so don't be stopping the podcast and jumping on there. But I want to clear some stuff out before I hit Hawaii. I want to bring the cash to Hawaii because there's like 4 comic stores on the island that I want to visit. And this is just a way of saying thank you for listening, for being our listeners, and for supporting me on the eBays. You know where to go. Crazy, KRAYZ. Come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Wait, I still got 2 hours and 20 minutes to go.
No, not where I finally take the previews because I've ordered everything I need and put it in the recycling bin. No, it's freaking and geeking. Joe, what you freaking on?
Well, both my freakings, which were big freaks last week, are less freaks this week. The first one, of course, Heroes Initiative is doing a JLA Avengers trade paperback, which is brilliant because it's been out of print for billions of years. They're doing it, of course, because, as we all know, George Perez isn't doing so well. The problem is they're only doing 7,000 copies. According to Brian Hibbs, with, what do you say, there's 3,200 accounts maybe from Diamond. That means every store might get 2, or maybe bigger stores might get more and smaller stores might get nothing. It's a ridiculous number. I went on a full rant about it because this is, initially, I believe it was going to go to help George, and George, being a generous guy, said, no, give it to the Heroes Initiative, because he, I believe, is a founder member, isn't he?
Yes,
or sat on the board of directors. So the reason why it's not so much of a freaking, because I guess more details through Kurt Buzak came out. The problem was they're trying to get this thing published, to be blunt, before George passes away. They had trouble getting time at the printer. There wasn't a lot of paper out there. So, and I believe, Cory, you pointed that out the last time they did this. They only sold 7,000 copies.
There were 7,000, what was it,
of
over
the
a
trade.
3, yeah, of the trade, there, over a 3-year period, they only sold 7,000 copies.
Yeah. And to me, my whole rant was, guys, you're leaving money on the table for Heroes Initiative. Maybe they'll go back and do a second print. I think they should, because the demand is way going to outstrip it. You know we're going to be seeing these damn things on eBay going for $200-300. But whatever, it's there. Aside freaking is, welcome to capitalism, folks. I say this because years ago, in northern Minnesota, Potlatch Paper Company had all these forest lands locked up for future paper use. Then they decided to sell it all off, and they sold them to potato farmers. I know when you think Minnesota, you think potatoes, but there it is. Problem with potatoes are they're very water. How would you say? They need a ton of water to make. So all of a sudden the people are like, hey, our aquifer is disappearing. Maybe we shouldn't be making so many potatoes. Well, Idaho did okay. It's a similar situation where the United States got rid of their helium reserve. They'd had this thing way back when, because we were the only place around that apparently had helium. And then about a decade or so ago, maybe longer, somebody decided, you know what, let's sell it off. Well, private market will take care of it. All of a sudden, the price of helium exploded. There's a legitimate helium shortage. People are doing this shit not because they need to, but because they want to make money. And it might not affect us, the helium, but paper, oh yeah, it's going to affect us. Price is going up for those. So who knows, we might see another bump up in paper. So that's my freaking on that. I got my discount comic book service. Last week I was freaking. It took them 6 weeks to get to me. 7, well, I guess 6, the end of last week. I mean, and they ship them fast though. I think they are feeling the heat, because this thing was like, I didn't check my email for 24 hours. Also on Saturday, boom, I got a box on my door. Or was it Sunday? It was not, it might have been Sunday. It came through FedEx. I went and checked my email. Yeah, there they are. Made it, picked up, shipping, be there. You know, so that, again, their discount comic book service is trying to get it out fast rather than, okay, we're just sending it ground. They had to, I don't know if they sent it ground or express. I was just happy to get my box. What I am freaking on, and why I'm so tired, although I think I went through the hours pretty good. I told Cory before, I got myself my shingles shot, and it's kicking this crazy boy's ass, even more so than the COVID shot. I've had shingles. I had it before I was 50, 57 now. And back then, you're not 50 yet, you can't have it. And it was a pain because I had it. And because at the time it was a live virus, I would have had to stop my rheumatoid meds because otherwise what happens is you take a live virus, your body reacts to it, and my immune system is suppressed, which means I could suddenly end up with full-fledged shingles and or chickenpox again. Now it's a non-live virus. I will have to do it again in 2 to 3 months because it's a 2-shot process. And it only lasts 4 years, but I know people online that have had shingles, and my grandma had it, miserable. And I got enough misery with my meds and my I don't know. Go back and listen to some of my hip stories from 2018, 2019. So, anyways, as soon as we're done, I will probably pass out for a while. That's my freaking. Cory, what you freaking on?
I had last weekend off. I did not get to do as much stuff as I wanted to because I got called for a surprise overnight shift at the group home. Normally, that's not a big deal.
Did they give you pie?
They gave me pie and a bonus.
Oh.
Because it was very last minute. And I slept on the couch. Also, again, normally not a problem. But the first time, at this house, you have to wake up 3 times. You have to wake up when one of the clients shakes her rattler to let you know that she's awake, because if she walks by herself, she could fall. So I had to walk with her to the bathroom. Then I have to wake up at 2:30 to get another client up to get them to the bathroom. And I guess the second time I wasn't quite careful in how I laid down. So I laid down in such a way that my neck was kind of a little twisted. So I woke up the next morning and said, oh, wow, my neck hurts a little bit. Well, I'll just take a couple acetaminophen and move on with my day. Well, the next day it hurt more. And by Saturday, when I woke up, it was like I cannot turn my head for all of the pain it is causing. So for the weekend, I watched a lot of TV with a heating pad on my neck. It'd be heating pad for a couple hours, then ice pack for an hour, then heating pad for a couple hours and ice pack for an hour. And it wasn't until like midday Sunday where it's like, okay, oh, look, I can turn my head again. I can drive because I can look behind me. So I did watch a lot of TV, which, was a good thing, but I didn't get to do as much cleaning as I wanted. I didn't get to go to the gym. I didn't get to go anywhere because it was, okay, now I can walk out to the car, but if I go to the car, I can't back up because I can't turn my head to back up. And then comic-wise, yes, they are reprinting the JLA Avengers. And it sounds like that it went through legal really quickly. Why then, oh why, can't they reprint Marvel vs. DC and crossover classics 1 through 4? Those trade paper, well, I don't think the Marvel vs. DC has been in print for 20 years. The 4 crossover classics trade paperbacks have been out of print for 15 to 20 years. Again, this is money on the table. We've had an entire generation of readers since they printed those. I don't even want to look how much they are on eBay, because at the time they came out, most of those books were available as back issues at a reasonable price. They aren't available at a reasonable price anymore. They're not on any app. They're not on Comixology. They're not on anything because they're crossovers. Hey, put these books out, make shops a lot of money during a time when they need the money, give readers something to be happy about, and make yourselves a lot of money.
Well, it's only $150 for JLA Avengers.
How much for crossover classics #1?
Crossover classics
that
#1.
That has Superman versus Spider-Man.
Yeah. Let's take a look here. I gotta. Dun dun dun. Do 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 do. Oh. Let's see. Let's see. So lowest 74 goes up from there.
Yeah. So, Joe, what are you geeking on?
Oh. The return of WonderCon Comic Book Show, May 14th, 2022, at the Mermaid Center and Event. The Mermaid Entertainment and Event Center at the Atlantis Event Room. Comic dealers, artist creators, 6,000 feet of comic book fun. Yeah, they may be gone from the fairgrounds, but they're going to keep rolling there. Missions $5 per person, 9 and under are free. I'll be talking more about this. Some of the guests coming. No out-of-towners, just local guys. Hell, we're happy to have them. And I got off work. It was amazing. I put it in the computer thinking, you've been denied. We'll talk about it later. Nope, it gave it to me right away. So not only will the week before we'll have free comic book day, but the week after, MicroCon. Last week, I went on a long thing about all these cool comic shows and events that were happening even as we speak. Well, by the time this podcast drops, they will have happened. So I'm not going to do about it because I'm probably going to be going to a lot of them. The first one I didn't go to, Pulp Comics and Games had Benjamin Percy, the writer of the upcoming Ghost Rider series, as well as Wolverine, X-Force, Teen Titans, Green Arrows. Pulp Comics and Games down in Mankato, Minnesota was one of our favorite stores we visited on one of our treks. It happened right after the it was here, the snowstorm. Not a lot of snow south because most of it headed north, but it was still like in single digit temps. And my wife needed her car because she had dental work. And much as I love my police cruiser, I didn't know if I wanted to take it on, single temp to below zero down to, so I skipped that one. The other ones I'm going to though, because there's a comic show by TC Comics Saturday, or conventions on Saturday. Toy Posse's got theirs on Sunday. So, they've got other shows planned in the future. But as we get closer to them, we'll be talking about them. And of course, next week I'll be talking about going there. So we got that to look forward to. Speaking of looking forward to, I've had a few eBay winnings. Some of these things, I think I talked about. I know I showed this to you, Cory, but I finally got in the mail. I think I might have mentioned it. The Spectacular Spider-Man 200, signed and remarked by Sal Buscema. This was one of those two dynamic forces. Came all the way from the UK. I was a little worried because I thought it might not get here, but sometimes you just got to relax and give them their 30 days. I picked up a pretty good run of Dragon's Claw. It was one of the Marvel UK books that came out, and this was the one that was only in Marvel UK. I think I got 1 through 10, no number 8. However, I got a key in issue number 5. Cory, do you remember issue number 5 of Dragon's Claw? Who's the bigwig in there?
That is Death's Head, the original.
Yes, this is his first comic book appearance. The previous ones were in the Transformer UK magazines where he fought Unicron with the Transformers because he was a Transformers-sized bounty hunter. Then he ran into Doctor Who, the 7th Doctor, in the Doctor Who magazine, where Doctor Who, he was a bounty on Doctor Who, and he shrunk Death's Head down using the Master's de-shrinker, which annoyed Death's Head, but he's remained that size to this day. So I'm happy to have that. That completes my run of Death's Head. I think the only one I might be missing, which should be an easy find, is Death's Head 2, because I think that's the issue where 2 ends up like killing 1. Also in the mail, I got She-Hulk number 1 signed by Joe Jusko, which is good because he did the cover. I went in kind of a weird binge I'm still trying to pick up signed comics. And every so often I go and I see who don't I have a signed comic for, with the caveat that if he's in my collection of artwork or in my Supergirl collection or in my sketchbook, I'm less likely to go crazy looking for them. But I got 2 of them. One's a Virgin photo cover, and the other one is not. I haven't decided which one I'm going to keep, which one I'm going to sell. So the dilemmas I got to go through. Back on the Discovery podcast streaming show, still going through season 1. I think I got after this ain't really a spoiler for a 4-year-old show, but they just finished defeating the, what do they call it? The death ship or whatever that the Klingons had. They gave all of them cloaking technology, but then they accidentally ended up in the mirror universe. And my wife came and I was trying to get her caught up, and I said, "Oh, you're going to love this." She got all the references from the original series Defiant to Enterprise to why they're going after the Defiant now. I only watched part 1 because somebody wanted to do a podcast. So I'm going to watch part 2, or I'm going to pass out. I haven't quite figured out because, like I said, the shingles virus is harsh. Speaking of Star Trek, a couple things I read. I finished The Trekker's Guide, The Picard Years by J.W. Braun. Worth a fun read. I think he's a hard grader. I do agree with shows he gave like an F2 because he kind of gives a synopsis. He talks about some of the behind the scenes things, gives you a do not know, which of course Cory was amused by because I kept sending him things. Did you know that Steve Gerber's wrote an episode of Star Trek Next Generation? Never knew it.
And it was one of the weird ones, of
It
course.
was. And let's see what else we got. He also gives some good interviews with people that were working either as writers, directors. Like this article was with Rick Sternbach, who was one of the big designers. He designed the title spaceship for one Star Trek show, Voyager, the title space station for Deep Space Nine. Along the way, he also contributed to the movies and was a cornerstone of the Next Generation. So this is a fun book to pick up. He also goes on to do Trekker's Guide to the Cisco years. And like I said, it's a fun read. I don't agree with him as all the assessments, because even on some of the things, like I give this a D, but I'm like, yeah, but there was a killer Troy moment in there or whatever. I don't know if I mentioned I read Animal Man by Grant Morrison, the 30th Anniversary Deluxe Edition Book 1. I read these back when they came out. Again, lots of fun to reread these things because I haven't read them in so long. Grant Morrison works his magic. Really, you got the writer on the cover, but you don't have the artist, Chaz.
Durong.
Thank you. Just a lot of fun. Book 2 obviously came out because the 30th anniversary was a while ago. I don't think I have it, which is most distressing, but I know I can buy it. And I finally read the official Image timeline book that Jim Valentino put together. This is loads of fun. It's kind of a self-congratulatory pat on the back of everything that Image has done. Not well, I shouldn't say everything, as even Jim says, I had to pick the highlights, not necessarily everybody's thing. And he apologized if he missed some, but some of the books he comes through, even I got to admit, like he talks about Robert Kirkman and Todd McFarlane got together and offered a new series called Haunt. I wasn't aware of it. So if I'm interested, I can pick stuff up. So a lot of books to look at. Just fun. I mean, I compare this with, because I was in Chicago when the infamous Image tent went. Totally forgot that Marvel, Dark Horse, and DC boycotted the Chicago Comic-Con, which at its time was moving in on San Diego Comic-Con in terms of size, although Wizard, that was the first year they bought it. Too soon to change anything. They just left everything as it is, but I had fun memories of it. Again, go back to the episode where I talk about my sketchbook and cover some of that, but definitely worth picking up as any Image fan. And yeah, Jim doesn't sugarcoat it. Makes me want more, as well as going and saying, wow, I didn't know he published this. Let's go look for it. Speaking of which, I think I've got all the unsorted new comics in my comic collection sorted. I posted it on a Facebook page, Minnesota Comic. Oh, I forget the name of the page. Sorry, Jamie, I forgot the name of the page. I'll look it up while I talk. But, it's arduous because I've got 15 long boxes of stuff trying to figure out, how am I going to sort this stuff? Minnesota Comic Squad. It's a private group, mostly for Minnesota fans. But if you say, hey, I heard it on this here podcast, Jamie might let you in. But I did post pictures of my collection and the unsorted stuff. To be fair, not all of it's comics, but, it's an impressive look. What I was happy about was somewhere along the line, I had like about 10 short boxes of comics to integrate. And I'm, again, numerical, whatever. And a couple of the boxes, thank God, Past Joe was smart enough to alphabetize them because it made it so much easier to put everything in order rather than, okay, I'm going from Amazing Spider-Man to X-Men to Mouse to but I think I've got like one handful of stuff left to do. I've got everything in order. Then I can go and start pulling out the miniseries to read. And maybe if I got them all in one spot, I'll join you in reading Immortal Hulk. So that was fun. It goes on though. I've still got more. Anyways, that's it for me geeking, other than in 2 weeks, I'll be in Hawaii, bound Hawaii. I'm just bragging now. Cory, what you geeking on?
I finally finished Immortal Hulk,
Ooh.
the 50-issue series. Damn, that was good. It was so good. The ending took me a little while to digest because it's not all right, who does Hulk punch to solve this? It's more about all of the stuff that Al Ewing set up through the entire series. And basically he's much like Peter David. He went through the history of the character and kind of grabbed all the different versions of the Hulk and figured out a way to make it all make sense. It was also very much a horror book, not a superhero book, and everything they did with Rick Jones was creepy as hell. Everything involving Rick Jones was just creepy as hell. But a fantastic run of a comic. They've put it out in 5 really nice, beautiful hardcovers. If they're not going to put out an omnibus, I would pick it up as those 5 hardcovers, because this is a book you're going to go back to more than once. I did read the first 2 issues of the New Hulk. It's a weird idea. I'm going to see where they go with it, because it's pretty clear it's not an idea that's going to last. But they also very quickly turned it into something strange, which I also liked. So I'm excited about the Hulk again. Been a while since I was excited about the Hulk, but I remember when Immortal Hulk was basically becoming Marvel's #1 selling book, and it was like, that's weird. TV-wise, because I was kind of stuck in my couch, I did read, the Immortal Hulk. I read a couple action adventure novels, which were okay, and I watched all of the. Let's see, I finished Star Trek Prodigy, which is the animated series that will be showing up on Nickelodeon. And for a series aimed at kids, I really liked it. I did not go into it thinking, well, this is going to be, big Star Trek stuff. No, this is kind of a modern kid story. The animation was beautiful. The full animation. I don't know if it was done on computer or not, but boy, it really looked good. Had an overarching story for the first season, but that overarching story didn't get in the way of each episode being interesting. And I like the characters, I like the setup, and I like the fact that they did 2 things that are one is very Star Trek and one is very kid show. The Star Trek stuff is all of the problems that they ran into were science-based problems. It was, okay, this is a weird thing that's happening. How do we solve it using either Star Trek gobbledygook or real science? And the second thing was that the characters grew. It was, how are we going to take these characters who are kids and act like kids and can be jerks, because kids can be jerks, and turn them into an actual crew? So in each episode, they took one step closer to that. And it's the thing that I wish they would have done with the Kelvin universe, in that our captain starts as a selfish jerk, almost a Star Wars-y type character. But as he goes through and as he learns, we see him start to learn what it's like to be a captain, learn the skills and attributes you need to be a captain, so that by the end of the first season, this is a captain. In the Star Trek movies, the first movie, Kirk is just a jerk. And there's no way he should be a captain. No way at all. And then in the second movie, he's the Captain Kirk we know. We don't get to see that journey of the selfish glory hound becoming a leader who loves his crew and loves his ship. But we get that in Star Trek Prodigy. I've also started the 4th season of Star Trek Discovery. I like Star Trek Discovery. And when I started watching it, and I posted that on Facebook, I told Joe, now begins the countdown for the haters to show up and tell me why all new Star Trek is terrible. And then I looked at the guy who normally shows up. Whenever you mention Star Trek, he kind of shows up and goes, it's not real Star Trek and it sucks. I noticed he was talking to someone about cryptocurrency. So it's like, oh, good. He'll be arguing about that with people who think he's an insufferable jerk. Cool. I don't have to deal with that.
I should even mention my wife got geek points for Discovery because she recognized the one character. And again, I'm still learning names. She's like, wasn't she on Walking Dead?
Yep.
And then I pointed out, and the other guy was on Harry Potter. which
Yes.
I didn't get until someone pointed out to me, and I was like, damn, I love acting. That's the whole point of it. If I can see a character, and it was just like scritching at the back of my mind, and then somebody pointed out, oh my gosh. But it's just wonderful to see him in another role. We saw him in Harry Potter, just little tiny bits, but this was fun. And I'm on the first season, just chugging through. Not even mad about spoilers because, it's my fault, 4 years old.
And the last thing I am geeking on in my Black Friday shopping online, when I got that box from Cheap Graphic Novels that I'd completely forgotten about, in it was Journey into Mystery, Masterwork Volume 4. Boy, I'm glad I bought that. These are all code-approved books, but the art in these is so cool. Not all the art is great. Some of the stories aren't great. Some of the art's not great. But man, one of the things that people have said for years and years and years is that Stan Lee didn't do anything before Jack Kirby showed up. And then you have the EC fans there were the EC horror books, and every other horror book was just a terrible knockoff of it. Well, in Journey into Mystery, you got Stan Lee, who's the editor and head writer. So he's got to crank the stuff out because Martin Goodman, too goddamn cheap to let him hire other writers. He could get his brother to help out here and there. He could get Paul Ryman to help out here and there. But 90% of the stuff he had to write. And it's good. I'm not going to say these are literary classics. I'm not going to say that these are brilliant stories, but I am going to say I've read stories from other companies like American Comics Group after the Code, and DC after the Code, and Harvey after the Code, and these are kind of a head and shoulders above those. They usually have an okay twist ending. The art, come on, man. You got Paul Ryman. You got Steve Ditko. You got Bernie Krigstein. You got Wally Wood. You got Al Williamson. You got Don Heck. Don Heck doing stuff that's not superheroes, so it's really good. These are just good, fun comics. Now, if you're not into Atomic Age horror, these are not going to change your mind. It's not EC. But they're well written, well drawn. There's some time put into them. They're well crafted, cheap horror comics. And I'm glad I was able to get this masterwork. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about comic books for 2.5 hours.
Again.
I need to go lay down.
I do too. And then I just see the note that Sally Kellerman passed away.
Wait, she's dead?
Yeah.
I didn't even know she was sick.
What's your job to find out, Pepper Boy? What was she, 84?
Yeah.
What do I watch tonight? MASH? Back to School? I know. I'll watch Where No Man's Gone Before, the second Star Trek pilot. There we go.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
More bad news. My friend injured his hand. He's helping with pruning at the local vineyard. Yep, he heard it on the grapevine. That's what I live for. I'm going to miss that when I'm in Hawaii. Not really. Hit my music.